You know, it's a funny thing about life's twists and turns. Just when you think you've got it all figured out, another surprise awaits you around the next corner. Some of those surprises are fun and good, and sometimes they aren't. Today, I'm going to tell you about 5 of those little twists and turns that helped to define me. Some I saw coming, and some took me by surprise as well. To begin, I was born and raised on a farm in Tulare, California, which is a small rural community right in the center of the state. My parents were turkey growers. I went to a country school, and I lived a carefree, lovely life out on the farm. I was a good student too, and I loved to read, so can you imagine my delight the day my mom took me to the local public library. I was a 3rd grader, and I got my first library card. I was hooked on knowledge, and from then on most Saturdays, I begged my mom to take me to the library. Once I was there, I dreamed of what my future would look like, and it went something like this. I dreamed that I would grow up and I would be a school teacher. And I would go in the classroom and I would impart my knowledge to my wonderful students. Now, here's the first of those 5 twists I mentioned. I did indeed attend college, graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree, got my teaching credential, and even got my first teaching job. Yay! And then here's the twist. I found out I hated being in a classroom with a bunch of kids. I felt trapped, underappreciated by administration, and alone in a school that really didn't focus so much about imparting knowledge, but rather Friday night sports matches. Undaunted and still young enough to move on without a backwards glance, I left teaching and I hitched my wagon to retail. And for the next 11 years, I worked myself up from sales clerk to teaching sales people for a small local department store. It was a great way to impart my knowledge while being around adults. Get it? While there, I met and married my husband. And what's that old saying? Something like, about not listening to your heart, but you know, when you fall in love, your heart takes over and does all the talking, and your head just kind of goes along for the ride. After nearly 15 years of wedded unhappiness, my head finally took over, and I became a divorced single person again. That was twist number 2, and I have to tell you, it was a very sad time for me because I had never imagined myself as a divorced person. Being on my own again and alone again was really rough. I remember I had to have my girlfriend take me to the gas station to show me how to pump gas in my car because my husband had always done those kinds of things for me. I can laugh about that little incident now, but I can tell you that at the time, I felt myself sinking into a pit of self-despair and depression. Twist number 3 comes along when my mom, riding up on a big white horse, well, figuratively anyway, said to me, "Honey, why don't you just move back to the farm and let me build you a house?" An offer I could not refuse. And so she built me a home, and for the next quarter of a century, I returned back to my roots, and I landed the best job I'd ever had. I went to work for our local county government as the training officer for the entire county. Wow! I mean, listen, living out my ambition, imparting knowledge, working with adults, and being respected for my professionalism. It was my dream come true. But we all know what dreams can turn into, and sometimes that's a nightmare waiting to happen. So after 10 years of loving my job and thriving at my dream job, I woke up in the middle of a nightmare when we had a new director change in our department. From day one, he and I were like oil and water. And after a year of being miserable every day when I went to work, I decided to take an early retirement from the county, and here's twist number 4. I opened up my own consulting business. Again, I'd never been happier. 39 years of working for somebody else, and finally I was the CEO, by the way, that stands for Chief Enjoyment Officer, of my own life. There's a certain rich satisfaction to being your own boss, isn't there? I thrived, my business thrived, and life was lovely again. That is until the weather elements began to conspire to work against me. After many years of living on the farm and having an idyllic, comfortable life, the droughts of California began to take their toll. It was no fun to wake up every day and hope and pray that you had enough water for your house well, for daily basic living needs. I bought bottled water to drink and to cook with. I took showers at my local gym. I even used the local laundromat instead of using my own washer and dryer to try to save my well. After 5 years of watching water tables slowly drop throughout the state and a couple of very close scares at my own house with my own well, I made the decision to leave California for good. Now, mind you, I had no idea where I was moving to, but I knew I was moving. Then, by happenstance, I spent 5 days in Cincinnati as a tourist in the fall of 2016. I visited Findlay Market, a couple of the museums. I had dinner at Over the Rhine and ended my Worldwear 5-day tour by a tour of the Spring Grove Cemetery. And I just, you know what, I just kind of fell in love with Cincinnati. Which brings me to twist number 5. When in February of 2017, I came back to Cincinnati for a speaking gig, and oh, by the way, I bought a house. Suddenly, I was back in California, packing up my home and heading to the heartland. I was about to become a Midwesterner. So ends my little story from small town California farm kid with a thirst for knowledge to proud Cincinnatian today. And I'm here to say this to all of you. Enjoy life's twists and turns, because you never know the places you'll go. Thanks.